All right, pre-cal students, we're looking at lesson 7.4, trig ratios of special angles. So we talked about trig ratios on Friday, and we defined sine, cosine, tangent and secant, cosecant, and cotangent in terms of x, y, and r. So now we're looking at specific angles. So in the unit circle, think of this as the unit circle here. Notice it's centered at 0, 0 with the x, y coordinate system. Here's my x, here's my y. Has a radius of 1. So any direction from 0, 0 out, I have a radius of 1. And so, for example, this point right here, this is going to be 1, 0. At the top here, I've got 0, 1. To the left, negative 1, 0. Down below, 0, negative 1. Okay? So we can use any direction now. We've got a distance of 1. So it says find the trig ratio for each of the following quadrantal angles. Remember, quadrantal angles are those that lie on the axes. So r is always going to be equal to 1 no matter where I am. And sine of 180 then, so 180 degrees is a half circle. That puts me on the negative x-axis. Sine, remember, is y over r. And so I'm going to have 0 for my y value over r, which is 1, and 0 divided by 1 is 0. So sine of 180 is 0. Cosine 180, x over r. My x value at 180 is negative 1. Divided by 1 is negative 1. Cotangent 270, so 270 degrees. My point, my x and y values are 0, negative 1. Cotangent, remember, is x over y. So if I do x over y, I have 0 over negative 1, which is equal to 0. Tangent 90. Tangent 90 is y over x. My y value is 1, my x value is 0. All right. When I have 1 divided by 0, I cannot do that. That is undefined. Anytime I have 0 in the denominator, that ratio will be undefined. Okay? I'm going to write it out here. You can just write U and D as an abbreviation. I'm fine with that. Cosecant of pi halves. So now we're moving to radians. Remember that pi halves is the same as 90 degrees. It's the positive y-axis. Cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. So that's going to be r over y. So my r value is 1. My y value is 1. This is 1 over 1, which is 1. Secant of 2 pi, a full circle, puts me back at the positive x-axis. Secant is the reciprocal of cosine. This is r over x. My r value is 1, my x value is 1, and 1 over 1 is equal to 1. All right? So notice these values that we're getting zeros, we're getting ones, we're getting negative ones, and so occasionally we'll get undefined as well. So find the trig ratio for 45 degrees. All right? So I know that at 45 degrees, I could come out here and I could find a point and drop an altitude here, and that these two legs are going to be the same. This is like a 45, 45, 90. It's an isosceles right triangle. So let's just call each of these legs 1. So if I have 1 and 1 here, then to find the r value, I'm going to say 1 squared plus 1 squared equals r squared. So 2 is equal to r squared. Remember that r is always positive, so r is equal to the positive square root of 2. So let's go through. This is so y is equal to 1, x is equal to 1, and my r value is root 2. So sine is y over r, 1 over root 2. We're going to rationalize that. We get root 2 over 2. Cosine, same thing. X over r, 1 over root 2. When I rationalize that, I'm going to end up at the same place, root 2 over 2. Tangent, y over x. 1 over 1 is 1. Cosecant. Cosecant is r over y. Root 2 over 1 is root 2. Secant, r over x, it's going to be exactly the same, root 2. Cotangent x over y, 1 over 1 is 1. All right, so there's our 6 values for 45 degrees. 30. Okay, number 3. We're looking at trig ratios for an angle up 30 degrees. If I drop an altitude here, then it forms a 30, 60, 90 triangle. And you may remember from geometry that these have a certain ratio. That if I call the short leg across from the 30 degrees x, that the hypotenuse is 2x and the long leg is x root 3. So if I let x be equal to 1, then my r value here is 2. Really this is my y value. And then my x value down here will be 1 times the square root of 3, which is square root of 3. And that's my x. Okay, so sine is y over r. That's going to be 1/2. Cosine is x over r, square root of 3 over 2. Tangent is y over x. That's 1 over square root of 3. And if we rationalize that, we get square root of 3 over 3. My cosecant is r over y, 2 over 1. That's 2. Secant is r over x, 2 over square root of 3. And again, I'm going to rationalize that. So that's 2 root 3 over 3. And then x over y is root 3 over 1, which is root 3. All right. So 60 degrees now. Hopefully you can see that if we drop an altitude here, this also makes a 30, 60, 90. But now, I'm going to call this side the 1. This side will be the square root of 3. This is my long leg, and my r value is still going to be equal to 2. Okay, so now sine is square root of 3 over 2. Cosine is now 1/2. Tangent is y over x, root 3 over 1, which is root 3. Cosecant, 2 over root 3. And if we look just above, we can see that that's going to equal, after we rationalize it, to root 3 over 3. Secant is going to be 2 over 1. That's 2. Cotangent is root 3 over 1. No, I'm sorry. That's going to be 1 over root 3, which again, looking right above, will be root 3 over 3. All right. Last thing on this page, cofunctions. Cofunctions have equal values when their angles are complementary. For example, sine 60 equals cosine of 30 degrees. If we look up above, what we were just doing, we have sine of 30 degrees is the same as cosine of 60 degrees, or cosine of 30 degrees equals sine of 60 degrees. So sine and cosine, we would say, are cofunctions. Sine and cosine are cofunctions. In the same way, tangent and cotangent are cofunctions. We can see that tan 30 equals cotangent 60. Cotangent 30 equals tangent 60. So tangent and cotangent are cofunctions. And finally, secant and cosecant are cofunctions. So that makes our job a little bit easier here. Okay, last page. Trig ratios for the special angles can be easily memorized by organizing them in a table. So 30 degrees, pi 6, 45 degrees, pi 4, 60 degrees, pi thirds. So sine of 30 degrees is 1/2, square root of 2 over 2, square root of 3 over 2. Cosine decreases, square root of 3 over 2, square root of 2 over 2, 1/2. Tangent, square root of 3 over 3, 1, and square root of 3. So find the following. We're going to use our table here. Let me see if I can get this all in here. All right. Sine of 30 degrees. 30 degrees sine is equal to 1/2. Tangent pi thirds. Here's my pi thirds. Here's my tangent. That's square root of 3. Cosine of pi. All right. Pi is one of our quadrantals. All right. Remember that at pi we have values of -1, 0. My cosine is my x value, and so that's going to be -1. X over r, really, -1 over 1. Cosine pi fourths, here's my pi fourths, here's my cosine, square root 2 over 2. Secant of pi 6, here's pi 6. Secant is the reciprocal of cosine, so I'm going to flip that root 3 over 2 upside down, becomes 2 over root 3, and I'm going to rationalize that, and I get 2 root 3 over 3 for the secant of pi 6. And finally, cotangent of 90. At 90, I've got the point 0, 1. Cotangent is equal to x over y, so it'd be 0 over 1, which equals 0. Okay? And that is it. All right, let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.